The Partridge Family became the hippest, happiest clan on TV. They had gold records, they had a hit series, they had fame, they had a bus. And not just any bus, but the hippest, grooviest painted bus you've ever seen that they decorated themselves in the first series. But before too long, they also had drug problems, infighting, and the first celebrity case of an eating disorder. Ah, fame. Is it all it's cracked up to be? Well, let's ask the manager. Over to you, Reuben Kincaid.
For 4 years at the start of the 70s, the velvet-clad Partridge Family rocked their way into a hit television series and became a music phenomenon.
When I first read the pilot, the very first day, I said, this is going to be a hit. I know it's going to be a hit.
But the actors who played the sometimes saccharine, sometimes savvy family found themselves caught up in a whirlwind of pop culture fame that changed their lives. David Cassidy became the hottest singing sensation since the Beatles, only to sacrifice his identity in the process.
The world had bought this guy that had been created, this David Cassidy guy, who was like this demigod, and I wasn't anything like him.
Shirley Jones sacrificed her film career.
I was Mrs. Partridge, I'm still Mrs. Partridge, and my movie career is still over because of it.
Susan Day became one of the first celebrity victims of an eating disorder.
There she was, 17, 18 years old in a bikini, and I came running up to her, a boy who should have been in a hormonal haze. And I just went up to her, oh my God, you have to eat something.
And perhaps more devastating, Susan's longtime crush on co-star David Cassidy ended unhappily.
I think she straight away fell in love with David.
Danny Bonaduce, who became notorious as a Hollywood child star gone bad, was himself a victim of childhood trauma.
Not often, but a couple of times I showed up for work with a black eye or a tooth missing.
And after the show ended, the Partridge effect continued to haunt the cast.
It's a tough life. It's not, it's not the kind of life you really want to pass on.
I was like completely homeless, living out in a car. Nice car, though.
It took me a decade and a half to come on and get happy.
In the next 2 hours, we'll reveal the strange circumstances that brought an Oscar-winning actress together on television with her estranged hippie stepson, a shy New York model with an eating disorder, and an obnoxious comic prodigy from a dysfunctional home, along with 2 cute kids and an offbeat stand-up comic. That's me, Dave Madden, known during the Partridge days as manager Reuben Kincaid.
Why me?
This is the classic story of the high price of instant fame. This is the story of the Partridge Family. The summer of 1969 found America in turmoil. The Vietnam War was in full swing, and a widening generation gap pitted traditional family values against a new creed of psychedelic drugs, sex, and rock and roll. An 18-year-old actor named David Cassidy had spent the summer of love hanging out in Haight-Ashbury, smoking pot and listening to Jimi Hendrix. David was the son of New York actors Evelyn Ward and the flamboyant Jack Cassidy.
He really created himself, my dad, this persona, this suave, debonair, kind of dashing, bon vivant kind of guy. And he was that in a lot of ways. And as a kid growing up and your father's like that, I knew I couldn't compete with it. He was the most charismatic person I think I still have ever met. And that was intimidating.
David was only 5 when Jack Cassidy and Evelyn Ward separated. His relationship with his father never truly healed.
I'd felt abandoned by him, and I never really felt like he had any time for me. And I always wanted, like all little boys do with their fathers, for them to put their arms around him and say, I really love you and I'm really proud of you.
Like his father, David's real passion was acting. After moving with his mother to California, David began pursuing acting seriously.
I had done probably 10 leads and guest shots in television shows. And I'd already done a Broadway show. My first professional job was in the theater. So I was well on my way to having the kind of credibility and the kind of, I think, respect that young actors at that stage of one's career can have.
By age 18, David had already appeared on dramatic television series such as Ironside, Marcus Welby, M.D., and Bonanza. For David, music was just a hobby.
I never would have pursued a music career. I mean, I probably would have continued to play guitar and write and play and mess around in my living room, but I was becoming a successful young actor.
Meanwhile, his father's second wife, Shirley Jones, enjoyed a world-class acting career. A former Miss Pittsburgh, Shirley became the darling of Hollywood musicals in the 50s and 60s, starring in such hits as Oklahoma, The Music Man, and Carousel. She also proved her dramatic range in 1960 by winning an Academy Award for her role as a prostitute in Elmer Gantry. Shirley Jones married Jack Cassidy in 1956.
Evelyn was separated, that's his mother's name. But I don't think she ever thought that they'd divorce, and they did, and David was the butt of everything. And therefore, he idolized his father, and because Jack didn't have a good relationship with his mother, he rarely saw him. And so that poor little boy really did suffer a lot.
Shirley tried in vain to earn David's affection.
David never really got very close to me as a child because I was the wicked stepmother, you know, I mean, so to speak. And so he was sort of not very sensitive. He was very sensitive about me and insensitive to my feelings.
By 1969, 35-year-old Shirley had her own children with Jack Cassidy, Sean, Patrick, and Ryan. She wanted to spend more time with them, but her movie career was making that difficult.
I was away so much of the time. I was never home. You know, that was when every motion picture was done on location. There was no such thing at that time of doing them in the studio. It was always location. And I had 3 small sons, and I was really kind of tired of being away from home.
On the opposite coast in Mount Kisco, New York, 16-year-old Susan Day was a beautiful but shy high school girl with a secret desire to act.
Acting was always in me. When I was a kid, I was always finding, I don't know how to say this, you go within the story. I would always fall into these stories and become these people.
But Susan's childhood dreams became hard to imagine when her mother died.
My maternal mother died when I was about 7, I think. Between 7 and 8. And my father, definitely he needed a mother for his kids. So somebody told him about this woman, Gail Schellenberger. Their 3rd day is dinner, and he proposes, and she accepts.
Susan's father remarried in 1960 to Gail Schellenberger. It was Gail who brought 15-year-old Susan to a modeling agency.
Now, my father, as a reporter, he brought in that element, but she brought in the element of, you know, you want to be an actor? This is possible.
Within a year, Susan appeared in several fashion magazines and made her television debut in a commercial.
A time for the 2 of us, being together and sharing our joy, all enjoy.
Commercials also launched the career of young Dante Bonaduce. Daniel is his middle name. I'll bet you didn't know that. His father, Joe Bonaduce, was a television writer who helped his son into the business.
I did an episode of The Ghost of Mrs. Muir that my dad wrote. I did an episode of The Andy Griffith Show that I believe my dad wrote. I did a bunch of Bewitched episodes.
On and off screen, young Danny was a precocious smart aleck with the timing of a comic prodigy. In 1969, Jeremy Gelbwax, Brian Forrester, and Suzanne Crowe were still unknown child actors with cute written all over them. And then there was abnormally handsome Dave Madden, who was born in Ontario, Canada, let's just say a while ago. I was a successful stand-up comic who appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show before getting regular roles on television in Camp Runamuck and Laugh-In. None of us realized that in the fall of 1969, Columbia Television was preparing to make a new sitcom that would alter our futures. When we return, the idea for the Partridge Family is hatched.
It was everybody's family next door with a little bit of glamour that would make every teenager and every parent say, wow.
And later, Partridge Family hysteria.
The ambulance corps, you know, would have all these stretchers laid out on the grass underneath the stage in the shade, and there would be all these girls, you know, lying there.
Screen Gems, the television subsidiary of Columbia Pictures, was desperately searching for a new sitcom idea. Their success with the Monkees proved the power of teen rock on television. Now what Screen Gems needed was a musical group that appealed to all ages. writer Bernie Slade, under contract to Screen Gems, had an idea for a new series.
Sound of Music was very big and was about the Trapp family who sang. And one night I watched the Johnny Carson show, and there was a family on that sang called the Cowsills. And I thought it was an interesting idea for a television show, so that's how the pilot started and how it all began.
Executives at Screen Gems and Columbia Television liked the idea. The Cowsills, a singing family with the hit single Hair, seemed a natural choice to star in the series. Executive producer Bob Claver went to check them out.
It was a hit group, it was a family. And Bernie Slade and I decided we would do this show, so we went out to see them thinking we would do it with them. Well, we met them, and there was one little girl that was adorable, and the others were really stick figures. So we went about doing it the other way.
Mel Swope also joined the team as a producer and director.
It was loosely based around the Cowsills. It wasn't the Cowsills story, it was simply, quote, a similar family.
From the beginning, Bernie Slade wanted to make the show about a single-parent family.
In those days, they wouldn't let you have a divorced mother, but your father could be dead. Essentially, we wanted somebody, a mother, that was the mother hen of the group, and somebody who could sing, and that also we needed somebody who needed money. That was the big point. If the father's there, obviously they wouldn't have to have their little band and go off.
Shirley Jones was one of the first to be considered as the struggling musical mom.
I think the idea for Shirley came from the network, and the studio digested that idea. And I think there was some resistance in the beginning, and ultimately it was decided to go with Shirley. I think a very wise choice.
She wasn't my first choice, but she was everybody else's, and they were all right and I was wrong. She was perfect for this, in every way possible.
Everyone around Shirley Jones thought doing television was a mistake.
When I was offered the Partridge Family, everybody, my manager, my agents, everybody that was in charge of my career said, "Are you crazy? She's a movie star. You don't do television. You don't do a television series. You know, that's a step down."
But when Shirley read the pilot, her fears were forgotten.
I thought it was great. One of the reasons I wanted to do the series, when I first read the pilot, the very first day, I said, this is going to be a hit. I know it's going to be a hit because it had something different. It was everybody's family next door with a little bit of glamour, a little bit of, you know, extra thing that would make every teenager and every parent say, wow, you know, it's like the old movies. Let's do a show. Let's go in the back of the garage and put a show together.
In order to cast the roles of the 5 Partridge kids, producers looked at more than 800 children. Suzanne Crowe and Danny Bonaduce were among them.
I auditioned, had an agent, auditioned, and all I remember is the actual bunch of girls there, thousands at the time, it seemed like.
It was horrifying. There were kids with, like, just painted on red hair and painted on freckles, and other little kids dressed up kind of like alfalfa with the bow tie and the little hairstyle, whatever the current perception of cute is kind of what was going on that day.
It wasn't a talent. It wasn't like I had to go through a huge audition. It was more that I think they were looking for a look, a talkative child.
I got called back, said some things. I think I got the job more off of the things I said that weren't on the script than that were.
However, one casting choice shocked Shirley Jones.
They came to me one day and said, we have a young man in mind, but we really need to talk to you about it because it's very important that you approve and get along with this young man. I said, well, who is it? I couldn't imagine what they were. They said, David Cassidy. And I said, oh, really? And apparently he was their #1 choice for a long time, but they just didn't know how it was going to work with me. They didn't know what our relationship was, you know. And so I said, no, I think it would be great.
But David Cassidy was reluctant to do the show.
I was an actor trying to pay my rent. You know, at 19 years old, I didn't have the foresight to say, gee, if I do this, even though I really didn't want to do it and I had to have my arm twisted to do this show, I also had to look at the realities, and that is I might not get another job, so I got to just keep working. And my dad taught me early on, you know, you don't turn work down at this stage of the game.
The producers also faced the task of finding a teenage girl to play David's similar-looking but opposite-thinking sister.
The only problem we had casting was Susan Day's part. We ultimately went to Paul Witt went to New York and found her. She was a model, a junior model. She'd never acted a day in her life.
According to David, Susan Day was so new to television that she asked at the screen test what a close-up was.
She didn't know anything, nothing. She was absolutely, if you look at those tests, just beautiful. And we wanted something different. We couldn't find anybody in Hollywood like that. And I'll tell you the thing she could do from day one, she could listen. So we had something going from the beginning, and then we slowly weaned her into doing lines. And she became a really good actress.
Susan was just gorgeous. I mean, she really was everybody's dream of what a teenage girl should look like and be. And even though she was very new to the business, she hadn't really done much acting, if any, I think.
The producers narrowed the possibilities down to two groups.
There were two Partridge families. Shirley was the mom in both, but David Cassidy was Keith in one, and a guy named John David Carson was Keith in the other. Susan Day was Laurie in one, and another guy, and I was Danny in the family that didn't get the job.
The only one that was interesting was Danny. I really wanted him, and the head of Columbia at that time did not want him. And finally he turned to me and he said, "Okay, you can have who you want, and you better be right." And he walked out of the room. Well, I was right.
Shirley Jones and her stepson, David Cassidy, teen model Susan Day, comic imp Danny Bonaduce, cute Jeremy Gelbwax, and extra cute Suzanne Crowe were cast as the singing Partridge Family. The plan was to pre-record all of the music in the studio with professional musicians. None of the cast needed to sing, except Shirley.
They thought because I was a singer, I would be the one actually singing, you know, in the show. And at that time, they were just negotiating about doing albums, maybe doing records.
But David Cassidy could sing. He had been performing and accompanying himself on guitar since he was 11 years old.
David went to Wes Farrell. Wes Farrell was the guy that did all the music. And they had some kind of talk. And Wes, I guess, checked him out and decided he was really good. To me, that was a bonus. To not have, to actually have the kid on the record has got to do a lot for you. I mean, those records, had they hit, without David, they wouldn't have done us all that much good. But with David on them, they made a big difference.
They knew that they had a teen idol or a prospective one, and so they gave him all the music, which they should have, you know, and I was just a backup singer.
The music became the final ingredient of a pilot designed to bridge the generation gap.
Everybody in the show appealed to a certain age group or teenage girl that, you know, was every teenage boy's fantasy. And there was David, who came out of that mold of the teenage girl's, singer fantasy. Then we had Shirley Jones as a mother who couldn't have been more, ready, traditional, conventional mother.
Wait a minute. Why don't we let Mom sing Gloria's part? Mom? Have you flipped? Look, she's better than nothing.
Oh, thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm afraid I'm going to have to turn you down.
Why?
Well, I can think of a lot of reasons, but there's one very good one. I'm tone deaf.
There was a danger built in that it could be sickening because it could really be saccharine. So that's why I wrote the agent in, who was cynical, and Danny, who was really the comedy relief. And we got lucky with him because he was very young, but he had a great comic sense.
Mr. Kincaid?
What is it?
Danny Partridge here, Mr. Kincaid. You don't have to do a thing. Just listen.
It was just a combination of really using the music and comedy, and we wanted a show that would appeal across the board to kids and their parents.
The question was, would the viewers agree? Coming up, the Partridge Family explodes into the stratosphere.
It was pandemonium. It was insanity. It was ear-breaking shrieks.
And later, they fall back to earth.
I didn't know what I wanted to do or how. I started off being an actor with a purpose, and I had no purpose anymore.
The Partridge Family was shot in December of 1969 with Shirley Jones, David Cassidy, Susan Day, Danny Bonaduce, Suzanne Crowe, and Jeremy Gelbwax as the singing Partridges. And with me, Dave Madden, as their manager. ABC bought the pilot, and at the start of 1970, the show went into full-scale production for the big premiere in the fall season. For scheduling reasons, almost every episode for the first season was shot before the show debuted. With no audience feedback to guide us, everyone in the cast and crew rallied around Shirley Jones. including a new young producer who joined the show, Mel Swope.
When you have someone with experience, a pro like Shirley, on the set, she sets the tone. Everybody respected Shirley.
The kids didn't know Shirley was a movie star, Danny Bonaduce in particular.
All of the adults on the set held her. You got to remember, her Academy Award is for Elmer Gantry, isn't it? I was 10, and Elmer who? I knew Elmer Fudd.
But the younger cast members respected Shirley because, as we all know now, Shirley was the ultimate mom, a fact that executive producer Bob Claver appreciated.
Shirley
She was wonderful, and you know, she would occasionally miss a line or something would happen, but she always dealt with it in a really great way.
I would have to jerk a knot in their tail every once in a while, you know, to make them, you know, sit up and say, hey guys, we have responsibilities. But other than that, it was wonderful most of the time. We really, really enjoyed each other. It got better and better.
Everyone listened to Shirley, but the younger kids all looked up to David.
What are you doing? He was brother, father, everything else. As I was mother, David was all those things. Danny just thought he was, I mean, and to this day, you know, he was a hero.
You know the my brother can beat up your brother thing kids do? My big brother was Keith. I just won that contest every time. My dad's an astronaut. My brother's Keith.
We became a friendly, close-knit group, which means there was a lot of practical joking on the set.
There weren't a lot of pranks being played on each other. There were a lot of pranks being played on me.
Danny, it was one of his days where he just, the lines weren't coming and he was giggly and he was, you know, a little undisciplined as he could get.
I just kept blowing my lines at the breakfast table, and I don't know if Susan warned people she was going to do this or not, but she just dumped this ice-cold picture of milk on my head and walked off. I was mortified. Another time, they duct taped me into my chair and hoisted me 20 feet off the ground, tied it off, and all went to lunch.
Suzanne Crowe and Brian Forrester particularly remember Danny's brotherly charm.
He's a triple espresso cappuccino, like, all the time. And he's fun and exciting, but little Danny goes a long way.
He did find trouble. He did cause trouble. But, you know, Danny wouldn't be Danny without that.
I'm gonna be terrific. It's one take Bonaduce all the way. It's Mom, the miracle. It's Mom, the miracle cure. Shoot.
You know, whatever kind of trouble he could mildly instigate. I remember there was a stunt bag at the bottom of a two-story window, and, well, on lunch breaks, that was very tempting, you know, to go jump out of that window.
The big studio lights, you know, they're huge and they're like this, and they have this little safety valve on them when they burn out so they can, supposed to release the pressure. Well, he and I climbed up on top of the studio, which, you know, the sound stage is, I don't know, 4 or 5 stories, and tossed him off onto the pavement below. That was pretty fun. I remember that, so I guess I'm not too innocent on that one.
In addition to his talent for mischief, Danny also had a natural comic gift.
He was the most brilliant young actor I had ever seen, bar none. Forget Shirley Temple. I mean, he was incredible. He had a sense of comedy for an 8-year-old that just you couldn't believe.
I tended to write more for Danny than anybody because I knew he would, that was where the money was. I mean, in the sense, from a comedy sense.
I was doing some pickups, some scenes we had to do, and he had a line, and the joke was something about Harry Truman. He delivers the line so well, the entire crew laughs, and he turned to me and said, I don't know what I'm talking about.
They're good writers on the Partridge Family. I didn't have to be. You know, people ask me that a lot, and it's very complimentary. You were so fast and funny on the Partridge Family. The fact of the matter is the lines were really good and easy to say.
One thing that I was very proud of was my work with Danny.
What do you think, Mr. Darrell?
I'm sorry, Mr. Kincaid, but naturally, I have to look over the fine print. After all, we both agreed that our record will gross millions.
Oh, no, we didn't.
The rapport that he had with Dave Madden, you know, who played our manager, that they were the, you know, it was Abbott and Costello. You know, I mean, they had a comedy routine going between the two of them that was just, you couldn't believe.
We joked about our working relationship years later when I appeared on Danny's television talk show.
Do we have a special rapport, and did we have one on the show? I say we did.
I say we did, and so have a lot of other people said to me that they thought we had a very special relationship. It's what they liked about the show.
And that was the key. I think when they saw that, when I say they, the network producers, everybody involved, saw that in the pilot, saw that rapport that he had with Danny and how that worked, that clinched it for them. And it did for everybody else.
In fact, the cast worked so smoothly that fans sometimes made the mistake of thinking that the Partridge Family was an actual musical group.
There was a better chance of thinking that we were a real family than thinking that we really played. I couldn't believe people to this day are shocked when they find out we didn't play or sing. I said somewhere, I said, you know, the Partridge Family was the original Milli Vanilli. And people were appalled. They couldn't believe it. It's like, lady, look at us. We're not even close to the words. Poor David Cassidy's up there singing his heart out, and we're all back there going, oh.
People would come up and say, why don't you play Las Vegas? Why don't you tour? You know, we're waiting for the Partridge Family to go out on tour so we can see the show, play all the big places. And I kept saying, you don't understand. There is no Partridge Family. We don't sing. We don't play, you know. It's all done in the studio. Well, they didn't get that.
They would coach us every week on the, you know, how to hit the tambourine and what the beat was and what the words were. And we'd go in there and we'd attempt to do it.
I remember it was probably the third or fourth episode of the Partridge Family. I'm sitting there strumming away, and David Cassidy just finally comes up and he grabs me by the shoulder and he goes, listen, you've been driving me crazy. You pluck a bass. You don't strum it.
But David had more to worry about than Danny's bass playing. There were concerns about what to do with the character of Keith Partridge.
We realized we had a problem when we started the show, which is he was very pretty, almost pretty, very good looking. And you can't have him a winner. So he always lost.
We played on his vanity. We had this kid who was very vain. And so he was a perfect foil for Danny to keep knocking down, and even his sister. And I must say that, you know, David played that beautifully.
I didn't know better. I'd say that you're afraid of heights.
I am not afraid of heights.
I know better.
You wouldn't ride the roller coaster with me.
That's kid stuff.
But you rode the merry-go-round.
All right, kids. Leave Keith alone.
Yeah, leave Keith alone.
You're defending me? What's in it for you?
If you look at those episodes, he never won. Until he got up with the microphone and sang.
And it was singing that really made David a star. After putting in a day on the set, he would go to the recording studio. Although none of us realized it, David was helping to make music history. Shortly before the show's premiere in the fall of 1970, the first Partridge Family song was released. The single, I Think I Love You, featuring David Cassidy with studio musicians, became the #1 hit in the country.
I think I love you.
And that was just the beginning.
I think I love you.
When we return, the David Cassidy phenomenon.
It was just pandemonium. I would say even more than the Beatles.
And later, after superstardom, David tries to find himself.
It was a very difficult, emotionally, very dark period of my life.
Had a little bit of everything. A little music, a little comedy, and a little common sense parenting. When the show premiered on September 25th, 1970, no one expected a phenomenon. But that's just what happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Partridge Family.
Right in the middle of a good dream.
By October 1970, the single I Think I Love You topped the charts. The song was so successful, it became representative of a new genre, bubblegum rock. And David Cassidy, like it or not, was the king. The success surprised everyone, including the show's creator, Bernie Slade.
The whole thing evolved really, especially with David, who went on to become a big rock and roll star, more than I'd ever imagined.
David was soon on the cover of every teen magazine in America. Henry Diltz became David's personal photographer.
And all the little teeny bopper girls had posters all over their bedrooms of Keith Partridge at that point. That was totally grist for the mill, to have a young, good-looking star, not only, recording, but also on TV.
There was also a terrific PR thing behind it with all those teenage magazines. And they sort of glommed onto David and pushed him, and that helped the show enormously.
To Shirley Jones, it seemed like every teenage girl in America had a case of David Cassidy fever.
It was exciting in the beginning, naturally. I mean, he became the teen idol of America with his picture on Life magazine on the cover, and every little girl swooning and dropping dead, in their tracks when he was around.
Even executive producer Bob Claver was besieged by exuberant fans.
I used to get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hello, this is Life magazine. As a 12-year-old, And it went on like that.
The studio became a favorite fan stakeout. Producer Mel Swope.
David became a superstar, and these young girls would be at the gate out in the valley at what we call the Columbia Ranch when we were shooting out there, and and of course the guard wouldn't let them in, but some would be there all day.
It was obvious to Danny Bonaduce that things were changing.
I had a concept of the magnitude of which David Cassidy had become a star. There was no missing that. I mean, it was, leaving 20 minutes early for work so you could do the 20-minute drive through bodies in your car, beeping on the horn, pushing girls out of the way of your car. So I knew David had just gone over the top.
I think it was very hard for him to, I know it sounds great, but I think it gets old real fast, that you can't go out and have a sandwich.
Fame hit so fast that David was unprepared. He found himself at the center of a growing frenzy of fan attention that sometimes got out of hand.
David had a fear of crowds. After the show had been on a short time, he went to a supermarket and someone recognized him and, and started making a little noise, and then other people came around, and there was a crowd of people got around him, and he felt kind of, like he was trapped.
On one occasion, David learned the hard way that the hysteria was growing beyond his control.
All he was supposed to do was we're supposed to say, bye, Mom, and get in the bus and drive 2 feet and stop. And I kept blowing my line according to David, and he got mad. And we jumped in the bus, and David just split. David just took the Partridge Family bus out the gates and on. We went to Hollywood Boulevard, and it was funny and wild until I don't know if we pulled over to get something to eat or what happened, but I mean, all of a sudden there was a riot and cops, and the bus is being rocked back and forth, and we went, hey, that's right, we're really famous now. This was probably stupid. We had a police escort back to the studio.
With David as a teenage idol, the Partridge Family quickly became a top-rated television hit.
It was great for the show. Certainly great for the show. I mean, I don't think the show would have lasted as long as it did had it not been for David.
A stream of up-and-coming celebrities soon made guest appearances on the show, including Richard Pryor and Rob Reiner.
Hey, cooler, will you? These guys are okay.
Thanks, Nick. Came along just in time.
Oh, these guys are just having some fun.
Maybe, but it'll go down in the Partridge Family history that we owe you one.
Forget it. You guys want a beer?
At the end of the first season, David Cassidy wasn't the only famous Partridge. Every member of the cast was affected, even the youngest, Suzanne Crowe.
Your time is pretty full 7 days a week, and then trying to seem somewhat normal, having the chores at home of feeding the dogs or whatnot. You have a full life. There's not a whole lot of extra outside time.
Being famous was certainly different, but I mean, we lived on a block with my friends in my neighborhood, and that didn't really change. I had a little more candy money on me than the other kids for a while. But all of a sudden, my favorite pastime was to go to Topanga Plaza here in Woodland Hills, and that was just out now. You can't do that. You're a security risk. Somebody might kidnap you.
The pressure was especially hard on young Jeremy Gelbwax and his family.
Not only was Jeremy asked to perform, but he had his schoolwork to do, as all the kids did. And it was really a grueling schedule. And I think in the end, his parents, and they were lovely folks, they just said, this isn't working.
On the set, Jeremy was having trouble getting along, especially with Danny.
The first Chris and I fought constantly. So did the first Chris and everybody, which is the reason there is now a second Chris.
Danny would look for something that Jeremy might have done to me to go take his hostilities out on him. But no, it did not seem to be a good blend. Danny was always into something, but Danny was not disrespectful, whereas Jeremy could be disrespectful. One time I remember, we were in a scene, we were on top of the bus cleaning it, where he actually threw a sponge at the director.
After the first season, Jeremy Gelbwax was replaced by Brian Forrester.
I was a little bit in awe when I first started. These were people I looked up to and admired, and I Think I Love You was all over the place, and I certainly knew what was going on.
Brian got along a little better with Danny. Here are Brian and Jeremy at the 1995 reunion show.
No, what's your favorite, Danny?
Oh, you want me to start this one?
Why don't you start this one?
I have many to choose from, but I think my favorite one is when Danny and I went to Kings Island. We did this show, right? Cute little girls hanging around. We both fell in love with the same girl. Well, the problem was she liked me and not him. And you can imagine how much friction there was with that. He was not happy. In fact, it was soon after that the studio hired what they like to call a recreation director to sort of keep Danny from kicking my butt. So what's your favorite story?
I don't really have one.
Brian also got along better with his co-star, Suzanne Crowe.
We had a little on-set romance, I guess, for romance of a 12-year-old, nothing too out of the ordinary, but, a little sneaking behind the set and a little kiss here and there. She always denies it. But.
He tells that story all the time, that we were in closets or upstairs or something, and I think we both at one point probably had a crush on each other, but I don't think it was ever at the same time. The recollection of each other is totally different.
While the younger Partridges got acquainted, their big brother was becoming an international rock star.
I know that David Cassidy had a bigger fan club than Elvis Presley or the Beatles at that time. David, just monumentally huge.
I didn't notice a huge difference in David except for the popularity and my friends coming to me and saying, oh my gosh, he's so cute.
By the second season, David's meager salary of $600 a week didn't seem like very much. Luckily for David, there was a loophole in his contract.
They had us dead. Somebody forgot to file David's contract, and he was a minor. We had no contract with him, and the show was at the end of its first year, and it was a big hit. And we had no contract with our biggest star.
David negotiated one of the highest salaries for any young actor then working, about $4,000 an episode. Then David figured out how to really cash in. He started performing concerts.
I don't know, it's great, they love it and I love it too,
What's the secret of David Cassidy?
Secret?
He was making 20 grand, 50 grand, even 80 grand a show for playing live. So he'd do work 12 hours a day for the Partridge Family. Then he'd go to recording studios at night and record the songs for the next week's show and then the albums. And then he'd fly off to somewhere to fill the Forum or Madison Square Garden for 3 nights in a row.
The concerts gave David's fans a place to unleash their hysteria.
Are you ready? Give me a D. Give me an A. Give me a B. Give me an I. Give me a D. What have you got?
It was just pandemonium. I would say even more than the Beatles. I mean, he was one guy. He would play these outdoor arenas like soccer arenas, and the girls would just, the whole field would just be full of girls.
It was insanity. It was ear-breaking shrieks. No words, just shrieks, and their faces would be all red from tears, and I mean, it would look like some tragic event had occurred, and they'd shake. It was bizarre.
Why are you crying? Does your mum know you're here?
Yes, she thinks we're mad.
The zeal of his fans, combined with David's fear of crowds, made the concerts a security nightmare.
I remember David was very concerned about security because the crowds just went absolutely wild. It was a phenomenon that you say, oh my God, this is amazing.
There were a few concerts where he'd dress up like an ambulance attendant and come in the ambulance, you know, dress up as a chauffeur or something like that. A lot of panel trucks where he'd be in the back, you know, and a decoy car would go in and then he'd be in the actual van behind that. He'd come off the stage soaking wet, and they'd throw him in the car and he'd wrap a big blanket around him so just his eyes were peeking out, you know, and he'd be all huddled up in this blanket, you know, and zoom off.
Coming up, David Cassidy lives out his rock and roll fantasies.
I had raging hormones and I was wild.
And later, Danny Bonaduce finds notoriety the hard way.
And then all the ex-child stars started ripping me off, shooting people, robbing video stores, punching security guards.
We're about to discover the manufactured family soon began manufacturing merchandise, and hasn't that caught on? But every time David Cassidy caught sight of himself on a t-shirt, he cringed. He didn't want to be a bubblegum popster. He wanted to be a serious musician like his hero, Bob Dylan. So it was up to TV mum and real-life stepmum, Shirley Jones, to calm him down and to try to keep all the other kids on an even keel as well.
By its second season in 1971, the Partridge Family was an enormous hit. Success transformed the cast, especially David. He became a bona fide rock superstar. But were the fans cheering for David or for Keith? At its peak, the Partridge Family was the focus of one of the largest marketing and merchandising campaigns in television history, with David Cassidy as its centerpiece.
They made dresses, dolls, comic books, bubblegum cards, guitars, puka shells, and everything else that had my name. And there I would be in maroon crushed velvet. And seeing my name underneath it, I was playing a part in those suits. And then the next thing I know, they were making David Cassidy, and there I was in, you know, playing Keith, but it was my name underneath it. And they owned my name and my likeness. And I think forever, people's perception of me had been changed.
To the public, the lines between David Cassidy and Keith Partridge began to blur.
The image that people bought and became so attached to and loved, and it was manufactured by a company who really had no idea who I was. And I was playing a character that was far younger than me. So it wasn't, it showed maybe this much of David Cassidy as opposed to, you know, what I've been able to do.
Friends like Henry Diltz could see David struggling with his image.
I think he yearned to be who he really was inside. I mean, he yearned to play more serious music, you know. He wanted to play Dylan and the Beatles and the Crosby, Stills, Nash, you know. I mean, those are the kind of songs that he would play in his dressing room.
David was given some creative control over the albums, and he tried to change the direction of the music. But his fans didn't want a new sound. They wanted bubblegum rock Keith. David started to fear that taking the role of Keith Partridge was a mistake.
He was having success as an actor like he wanted, but it wasn't the kind of success he wanted, you know. He wasn't really in control of it. It was controlling him.
Had I not done the Partridge Family, and I'd waited and thought, I'll roll the dice, who knows what my reality would have been. Come On, Get Happy never would have existed.
David hoped that his fame would at least bring him closer to his father, Jack Cassidy.
When I became very successful, I thought, this will be the time for us, because I'm now on an equal to him. And in fact, I was much more famous and more successful than he was. And that's when the difficulties really became significant, because he couldn't handle it.
I think Jack, in many ways, was jealous of him. I think there was a lot of that male ego thing going back and forth. So they never really got it together.
But while father and son grew apart, the show brought Shirley Jones and David closer together.
My stepmom was really a great buffer and tried as best as she could, because we became great friends and a great ally of mine.
And the wonderful thing that happened out of it is that we really became friends and really got to know each other on an adult level, which we hadn't as child and stepmother. So it worked very well.
Millions of Partridge fans agreed. For them, Shirley Jones was the perfect mom.
Hi, stranger. Haven't seen much of you the past few days.
Yeah, I know. I've been studying.
Honey, I wish I could help you with this. I'm afraid this time you're on your own.
You did your best.
Every young person, perhaps, that didn't have a very stable life out there in America thought, wow, it was the dream. It was the fascination. Why can't my mom be like that? You know, why can't I have a parent that does that? Isn't that great? You know, she's so perfect with the kids, and they work together, they play together, they are together. And it was sad. It was really sad because I had a lot of little runaways saying, can I come and live with you?
Along with the runaways in search of a new mom, there were plenty of girls after David.
That's why I have a sign out on my front door right now that says, no fans, please. Those aren't my fans. That's not the reason that sign is there. It was because everybody thought David Cassidy lived in this house. And they'd show up at 2 and 3 in the morning ringing my doorbell.
One young girl actually camped out at Shirley's house.
The girl who pitched the tent overnight in my lawn. You know, we'd go out in the morning and there she was in a sleeping bag. Where's David?
Shirley, of course, treated it like any good mother would.
Well, you say, listen, you know, he doesn't live here, number one. You know, David, by that time, of course, it was on his own. And I said, he doesn't live here. And you go home to your family. Do you have bus fare? Do you have this? You know, it was that kind of thing. And it was more than once that we did that.
Who is that girl?
You mean you two haven't met?
No, but we had some pretty heavy eye contact. How'd you find her?
I found her standing in my azalea bed, so I asked her in. It was very sweet. She has a big crush on you. Hi.
In each city that we went to, the record company would have a promoter. And, you know, they would arrange for people to come and meet David. And, of course, there were guys and girls who would meet him, but, you know, who cared about the guys, you know?
You'd go into his dressing room at any given moment, and it would just be chock full of girls. And Henry Diltz, his photographer. And you'd open the door again later, and if you took the time to notice, because it was still full of these girls, and they'd be different girls. It'd just be a whole new crew.
Girls were the reward of rock fame. And David intended to reap those rewards.
I was like every other guy in the 60s and 70s. I was, you know, my hormones were raging, and I would have gone about being a wild, reckless, you know, carefree idiot, like most of us were during that time, pre-AIDS, when it was the, you know, I think our motto during that period of time, that generation was dope and sex and rock and rollin'.
Hey, what's your name?
What does that have to do with it?
I just want to know.
You're just a guy that, you know, looking at the pretty girls and trying to meet one, you know, trying to find somebody that was compatible, someone he could talk to, somebody that was fun to hang out with and while away the time, you know, in between this sort of boring job of going in there and reading 3 lines.
Of course, few of the adults seemed to realize that 20-year-old David was living the lifestyle of a rock god.
I didn't know there was all that athletic stuff going on in the dressing rooms. But there was a lot of stuff going on I didn't know about. And, you know, Shirley never told me anything about it, so I can't believe she didn't know. She was right, her dressing room was right next door.
I saw a lot of girls going in and out of trailers, but I didn't, no, I didn't, you know, it wasn't obvious to me. I mean, I know he talks about it and everybody else talks about it, and maybe they actually kept it away from me. I have a feeling they did, because he knows that I wouldn't necessarily approve of that. So, you know, I think that they kept it out of my sight a lot of the time. But yes, I'm sure it was happening.
Since Danny was into everything anyway, you can bet that all those beautiful girls didn't escape his attention.
To be personally involved in the crush that was David Cassidy was often frightening and also awe-inspiring, and when I hit puberty, exactly what I wanted.
Playpen magazine?
Let's face it, it's filled with visual aids. Besides, there's a quiz in here called What's Your Sex IQ? The page is turned down.
All the pages are turned down. Out.
Let's move on to the next question.
Young Danny was always kept out of David's inner sanctum.
He'd either be in his dressing room with hundreds of girls, or he'd be working. And I wasn't, you know, I only worked with him when he was working. Can you imagine what the wet blanket a 10-year-old would have been in his little orgy room? Hi, I'm Danny, Keith's little brother. Please take off more of your clothes.
But that didn't stop Danny from taking advantage of the situation.
My first sexual escapade was on the set of The Partridge Family with a David Cassidy, I don't want to say reject, because I'm sure she's out there somewhere, and I Still Love You. And I walked up to her as grown up as I possibly could, and I said, "Hi, I'm Danny, all 14 and fat." And she, I guess her motto was any partridge in a storm, and she took me and made a man of me. And I like to say I gave that woman the best 30 seconds of her life.
When we return, the end of the Partridge Family.
I think that they looked at the ratings, looked at the projections, and decided the show was over.
Even though David Cassidy was overwhelmed by the publicity, he enjoyed the attention of his groupies. But by its third season in 1972, the Partridge Family started to develop some of the dysfunctions of a real family.
But I think better still, I'd better stay around and love you.
In the era of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, drugs got the least attention from David.
And I never would have called him a real druggie, you know. Everybody experimented in those days, you know. You know, everybody did. It was just all around. It was a way of life.
Before the Partridge Family, he had experimented widely with pot and psychedelics. But the death of a close friend from an overdose had left David Cassidy with negative feelings about drugs.
Didn't really get into them, you know. the heavy duty stuff, which is a dead end, you know, and which is a way out for a lot of people. And I'm sure having a friend, you know, die certainly must have scared him, you know, scared a lot of us from getting, you know, getting involved too deeply.
The same was not true for Danny, who was desperate to try everything.
I'm sure that it was happening because he was very precocious and wanted it desperately, loved the success, adored David, and David was involved in drugs then too.
But David tried to keep Danny away from drugs.
We're doing the episode on the cruise ship. I don't know why we're on the cruise ship, but we're on a cruise ship. And I go and I knock on his door, and Henry Diltz or whoever says come in, and there it looks just like his dressing room. There's a bunch of girls, there's a bunch of people, and he's not there, and there's pot smoking going on. And a guy or girl, whoever, just hands it to me, and I go cool. And just then David came in, and he went crazy. He started saying, "Are you out of your minds? He's a kid." I mean, he went off on these guys, and that threw me out too. So whatever David was doing, he tried to keep it away from me.
From the beginning, Danny was a handful, but as the years went by, it became evident that Danny was dealing with his own family troubles.
There were long periods of time that I felt closer to the Partridge Family than to my family. My family had all sorts of real-life problems. Everybody on the Partridge Family was rich and pretty and didn't seem to have any real problems.
It was a turbulent family household, you know, which ended in divorce. But I think Danny is Danny either way.
He had a very sort of sad home life. And, you know, it was sort of an unstable home life. He didn't get on with his father very well.
There was no missing that my house, my real home was dysfunctional. Kids didn't come over, cops showed up a lot, things were broken. A couple of times I showed up for work with a black eye or a tooth missing and stuff like that.
Shirley and I often spent extra time with Danny.
I think there were people looking out for me, plus I would do a lot not to go home.
I used to bring him home on weekends to play with my kids because I felt that he needed to have some friends, you know, and he'd come and stay with us, and he was very good with me. I mean, everybody said, "Oh, didn't you have a problem?" He listened to me, you know, I think he respected me and he listened to me, and so I really loved Danny. I still do.
Dave Madden was my hero. Dave Madden was my guy. I spent as much time at Dave Madden's house as I did at home. I'd go home with him after work. I mean, even if, you know, I was done and he wasn't, which wasn't often the case, it was usually the reverse. Usually he was done and I wasn't. One of us would just sit around in our dressing rooms waiting for the other one to be done and split and come back to work the next day.
I was the one who taught him to drive.
We were in his little Fiat Spider. He had a beach house. And we were going over to Malibu. We're at the top of Malibu Canyon. And he says, "All right, sit on my lap, and you can steer." Because I was already learning to drive. I was driving all the golf carts around the studio. And we start going a little faster. He just puts the car in neutral, and all of a sudden he goes, and pretends to die. And he takes it so far, because we're like screaming around these curves, and his head's going bam into the window and bam onto the others. And he's, I mean, and we're I'll remember that forever.
While Danny had troubles at home, Susan Day faced her own private problem, which became apparent in a bizarre way.
she turned completely orange. Susan Day, and I bet you if you push this or even hint to any Partridge you get to speak to will remember this, not necessarily happily, but she turned orange from carrots. That's all she ate for a while was carrots. She just turned like this almost iridescent orange.
Her skin always looked orange.
Her skin was getting, you know, a little yellow.
It was turning her skin a little bit yellow or orange or something.
Well, she didn't look good. That's the only way. I mean, she wasn't, she ate carrots. She was a model, probably. It was left over from her modeling days, and she was, you can't believe how skinny she was.
I think also at the time, which we didn't know, I think she had an eating disorder. She had anorexia. And, you know, at that time, even then, you knew very little about that. You know, we know so much about it now, but then nobody really knew what it was, but she was extremely thin and never ate anything. And then it came out much later on that she was bulimic and had a really tough time, and nobody knew about it.
We were at the beach one day. She stayed with my family when she first moved to California. And there she was, 17, 18 years old in a bikini, and I came running up to her, a boy who should have been in a hormonal haze. And I just went up to her and went, "Oh my God, you have to eat something." She said that was when she knew she had a problem, when a pubescent boy ran up to her in a bikini and told her she looked awful. So, you know, I may have saved Susan Day's life, you never know.
With support from everyone, including the show's producers, Susan overcame the illness.
We watched that very carefully. She got through that. But she did go through a period where she was just, that's an awful thing to watch. She didn't have a death wish. She had that illusion, that terrible illusion.
Susan recovered from her anorexia, but couldn't recover from her secret crush on David.
I think she straight away fell in love with David. David was in his 20s, and she was just 17, I believe. And she was very in awe.
I know that David and Susan had a lot of little kind of asides, you know, and things on the set, you know. That was always fun to get, because I was always watching them, you know, through my camera, you know, really focused right on them, you know. And so I was picking up every little nuance, you know, every little expression. They had a great kind of fun working relationship, you know, that I think they kind of made it more fun for each other, you know.
He was not, I don't think, quite aware of it. She confided in me one day. I didn't know it for the longest time, too, until she really actually said it. And I said, "I had no idea that you felt this way. Have you discussed it with him?" And she said, "No, you know." And so I told him about it. And that was when it was sort of brought out in the open.
With or without the Partridge Family, David Cassidy's an extraordinarily attractive guy. You throw in the power of the dough and that everybody else wants him, I can imagine that she had a big crush, but I did not find out that they had slept together until I read his book.
But David wasn't really interested in Susan, at least not the way she hoped.
I guess he said, sorry. And she was crushed, you know, because she didn't want to expose it because she was afraid of that, I'm sure.
By the end of the third season, it became more and more apparent to everyone that David was burning out.
David would go on the weekends and play to maybe 300,000 people in a couple of concerts and come back and sit all day on the set to do 5 lines.
They had him on a whirlwind. I mean, he was the guy.
Well, I know there were times when like he couldn't sleep. I mean, you're going between being exhausted and preparing for the next day's work, preparing for the concert. You'd shoot all day, and then he'd go to the recording studio, and sometimes he wouldn't be there till 10 o'clock at night, and that session could go till 2 in the morning, and then you have to be on the set 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning.
He was really burning the candle at both ends. I mean, he was being Keith Partridge on all the weekdays, and then he was being David Cassidy, the rock star, you know, the musician, on the weekends. And normally, that's when he would have, you know, rested up for the next week, but he didn't get a chance to do that, so he was living a double life.
That gets a little old after a while, and he had a hard time the last couple of years. He was a very burned out young man and almost gave up the business entirely. He'd kind of had it by then.
Even more than the grueling schedule, David was tired of playing Keith Partridge, the loser.
Oh, look who's here. Sleeping Ugly.
I'll ignore that because I haven't got the strength to hit you.
He resisted, you know, as the years went on, playing opposite Danny, the butt of the jokes.
David Cassidy became, for a while, Danny Partridge's wacky sidekick, if you would, or actually straight sidekick. that had to be depressing, you know, for a grown man. And, you know, I think at least half the shows were called Danny Grows Up, Danny Gets a Girlfriend, Danny Runs. I mean, my name was in the title of the shows. And that may have worked.
This whole thing is your fault. You and your dumb ideas.
Anyone can come up with a dumb idea, but it takes a real numbskull to listen to it.
The show always had to end on some cute note, you know, and that, which is understandable. And once in a while, he would just roll back in his chair and he'd go, oh, and he'd fall over backwards, you know, like completely exaggerated. I mean, you could tell it was, you know, that was a time of, boy, isn't this fun kind of thing. So, you know, that was about the only clue I had.
But the jokes worked, okay, and it was helping to create a hit series. Off camera, he could, you know, cajole and grouse about it, but the reality is he was always a pro.
He looked down on it. He made fun of it, which I was not happy about, by the way, you know, toward the end of the show. I understood it because, you know, the time was changing, and again, the music was changing, the era was changing.
By the 4th season, it was clear that the magic was gone from the show.
As we went into the 4th year, we were looking for something to bolster the ratings, and that's the time that we had a lot of different ideas. Ultimately, we brought in Ricky Siegel in the hopes that that would help to build the show up a little bit. And I mean, he's a cute kid, but it didn't quite do it.
What a bummer. Hi, Keith. Hi.
Hi.
What's wrong?
What makes you think there's something wrong?
He's feeling guilty. Yep.
What makes you think that?
It's written all over your face.
And when we reached that level, we knew we were dead. we had tried everything.
With the ratings slipping, ABC switched the Partridge Family. 1974, the last original episode of the Partridge Family aired. We thought the Partridge phenomenon was over.
That's what they said about Nixon.
But we were wrong. When we return, the Partridges try to return to a normal life and fail.
I was very lost. I'd left a career and something I, you know, didn't want anymore, and I didn't know what I wanted to do or how.
The Partridge Family was canceled. The pop culture phenomenon fell victim to changing times and taste. Some of the cast members found it difficult to return to their former lives. When the Partridge Family stopped production, it wasn't just fans who were surprised.
I pulled up to the gate with my mom first thing in the morning, and the gate didn't open. Guard looks out and goes, "Anybody call you?" I said, "No." And he goes, "The Partridge Family doesn't live here anymore." And that's how I found out.
Now, I remember my mom, in her foresight, had everybody sign a picture, you know, of all of us together and that sort of thing. But I just remember one day it was like, okay, great, going back to school now. And that was that.
The show went into reruns in the spring of 1974. We all said goodbye and tried to go on with our lives.
Oh, it was sad. You know, this was a family, and we had been a family. I spent more time with them than I did my own family a lot of the time. You know, it was 5 days a week. Sometimes on weekends I'd have the kids here and so on. So it was hard. I mean, there was a lot of tears.
Even though you know, until they tell you, you know, you're still hopeful, and then you go through the disappointment, the separation, and it's hard to say goodbye to the family.
The show was over, but David Cassidy was more famous than ever. Finally free of his TV obligations, David immediately left on a world tour. But fan hysteria was so great that David's concerts turned dangerous.
They would all surge forward when he came on stage and you know, crush the people up in the front against the barriers. And so the security guards would have to go down in front of the stage and pull these girls bodily out of the crowd. I mean, a lot of times they had to say, please, you know, everybody back up or we're gonna have to stop the show. And some of them had fainted, lots of them were crying, you know, hysterically. I remember a couple of concerts that the ambulance corps, you know, would have all these stretchers laid out on the grass underneath the stage in the shade. And there would be all these girls, you know, lying there kind of sobbing or you know, with wet towels on their heads. It was quite incredible. Looked like a scene from Vietnam or something.
David Cassidy fan frenzy reached a deadly climax at White City Stadium in England on May 26, 1974, when a 14-year-old girl suffered a fatal heart attack.
Well, it was devastating to David. I mean, he wanted to quit touring, you know, right then, and I think he did soon afterwards. I think he had to, you know, finish this commitment. I think he did another concert or two, and then that was it, you know. He said, that's enough.
Can I ask you, at the age of 24 now, you're retired?
I'm not retiring. I'm stopping touring. I'm still going to make albums. I hopefully still will be able to act. I'd like to do a film. I'm not retiring. I'm just not doing concerts anymore.
He didn't want to be in the business anymore. He said after that and after all of the exhaustion of what he was doing, he said, I'm going to give this up for a while. And that's what he did. He took his guitar, he went to Hawaii, and just nobody could find him for 2 years.
At the age of 24, David Cassidy, quite simply, was tired of being a superstar.
That carried a great weight and a great responsibility, because I never felt worthy of the adulation or of the role of being a sex symbol or any of that. I never felt comfortable with it. It was, if anything, it was probably intimidating to me.
There was probably 3 lives that he led. There was Keith Partridge, there was David Cassidy, the superstar, and then there was David Cassidy, the person. And he had very little time to be David Cassidy, the person.
David didn't regret his decision to quit.
I walked away from it at the top. If I had probably carried on for another few years, it would have diminished. Nothing can continue to sustain that. And when you're playing the biggest arenas and, you know, coliseums in the world, football stadiums, what else can you do with it? I mean, you can turn around and say, I can go back next year and do it, but I'd done it for 5 years and was burnt. So I needed to, emotionally and professionally, I needed to walk away from it.
The Partridge Family experience brought David and his stepmother, Shirley Jones, together. But the tension between David and his father continued to grow. In 1975, after 18 years of marriage, Shirley Jones and Jack Cassidy divorced. Then, in December of 1976, Jack Cassidy was suddenly and tragically killed in a fire.
It never really did improve. Matter of fact, you know, when Jack died, they weren't speaking and hadn't been for some time. And that was right after the Partridge Family.
I really regret not being older and not being more mature, not being more evolved, to be able to say, you know what, Dad, who cares? I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I love you. And, you know, I learned a lot, but it's what put me into a real downward spin for about the next 5 years of my life. I was very lost. I'd left a career and something I, you know, didn't want anymore, and I didn't know what I wanted to do or how. And I started off being an actor with a purpose, and I had no purpose anymore. And I felt, you know, I lost my dad, I lost my manager a couple of years later, and it was a very difficult, emotionally, very dark period of my life.
After the show ended, some of the other cast members experienced troubles too. Danny Bonaduce appeared sporadically on television and in B-movies, but acting didn't always pay the bills.
I remember when I was like completely homeless, living out in a car. Nice car though. You know, signed autographs that day and you don't even know where you're gonna sleep that night. That was a little weird.
Danny studied martial arts with Chuck Norris for 20 years and won 2 international championships. He opened his own martial arts school for a short time, but no matter what he did, he was still Danny Partridge.
The first time I really grasped that being the guy from the Partridge Family was hysterical was actually I was just about to get in a huge bar brawl, and this guy and I stepped outside, and we're squared off, and all of a sudden he started to crack up, and I was going to hit this guy hard. And I went, what? And he goes, I cannot believe I'm about to fight with Danny Partridge. And the way he said it made me laugh so hard. And that's when I realized that being the guy from the Partridge Family is hysterical in almost every instance.
Finally, in 1988, Danny found his way onto radio.
I got into radio for sure because I was the guy in the Partridge Family. I had no background in radio at all. They hired me as a novelty act. And luckily, when the contract was up, I was a hit and had a knack for it and have turned it into my career for the last 11 or 12 years.
His new radio career also provided Danny enough money to get into real trouble. He was arrested on cocaine charges twice, once in Florida and once in Beverly Hills. Then, in 1991, Danny was arrested in Phoenix for assaulting a transvestite prostitute.
You can imagine how bad your nights go when your date turns out to be better hung than you. It's just like, hey, lady, I respect your right to accessorize, but it's not like it matches your shoes.
Danny never blamed his fame for his problems.
I think that I did all the stupid things that I did because I was a stupid kid. And I think, you know, I hear a lot of these ex-child stars go on the talk show circuit and blame the fact that they were once millionaires on all their problems. You know, I happen to have been in Nicaragua and Honduras when the hurricane hit. Those people have real life problems, not people with sitcoms. When I went to rehab, I was the only ex-child star there, but there were 9 dentists. Nobody asked them if they thought their problem stemmed from being an ex-child dentist. It's just a silly, not real manufactured problem.
Even though he was widely labeled as a Hollywood child star gone bad, Danny never lost his sense of humor.
I actually was never really addicted to drugs. My career was just in a slump.
Yeah, was that a publicity?
It was all a publicity stunt, yeah. And then all the ex-child stars started ripping me off, shooting people, robbing video stores, punching security guards. What's up with you people?
And when Danny most needed help, his surrogate big brother was there.
When Danny was having his problems, a lot of his problems, heavy into drugs and the police and the whole thing, you know, David really came to his rescue at that time. This was long after the show, and David was going on the road, and he called Danny and he said, hey kid, you know, come on, clean up your act and come on the road with me.
The last time I appeared at a Partridge Family event was for the premiere of Danny's television talk show in 1995. Danny finally got it together.
He had a lot of problems. Everybody knows about it because he was the first one to tell you about it. You know, with drugs and prostitutes and you name it, Danny went through it. But he has a wonderful wife and a lovely child, and I think he really knows what he has now, and he's successful.
And I'd like to point out, because I know David's watching right now, that David actually gave me a big break when I needed it. When I was in a lot of trouble, he gave me a job as his opening act on his tour and gave me a chance to show up places on time, clean, and sober, and I got a job out of it. So thank you, David.
The younger kids did okay. Suzanne Crowe continued acting and went on to a TV series, Mulligan Stew. Then Suzanne starred in the Academy Award-winning short, Teenage Father, before marrying and starting a family of her own.
There is life after the Partridge Family. There was life for me in acting after the Partridge Family.
The first Chris, Jeremy Gelbwax, pursued a career in computers, and the second Chris, Brian Forrester, who remains the only single Partridge, grew up to become a race car driver. Brian still has hopes of returning to acting.
My mom had started me in commercials when I was 7, basically so I'd have money to go to college. You know, that was her only intent, and luckily my mom invested my money, which she didn't have to, and, you know, I'm doing okay now.
Soon after her divorce from Jack Cassidy, Shirley Jones met and married comic actor Marty Ingalls. Even though Shirley continues to work in television, she has never shaken her Partridge image.
I was Mrs. Partridge, I'm still Mrs. Partridge, and my movie career is still over because of it. Well, not quite that bad, but yes, it really put a crimp in my movie career. I mean, what the agents and what the managers and what everybody said was going to happen did happen.
Susan Day moved on to movie roles, but she did not have a hit until 1986, when she returned to primetime television in the series L.A. Law. Susan won 2 consecutive Golden Globes for her performance.
I didn't know the influence that Laurie Partridge had until I started L.A. Law, just prior to doing L.A. Law. And women were now approaching me saying what an influence that she had, and a positive one, and I was never aware of it. It was the nicest thing to hear.
Susan Day still avoids talking much about the Partridge Family.
She went on to do L.A. Law, which was wonderful. She did some movies of the week, which were wonderful. She's a good actress. She just, for the longest time, and apparently even to this day, wants that out of her life. She doesn't want to be remembered as a part of the Partridge Family.
I don't know why she does it. I think life would be easier for her and have a lot more fun if she just would get on with it, but she doesn't want to and hasn't since the end of the show.
I'm sleeping and right in the middle of a all at once I wake up from something that keeps stopping.
David Cassidy continues to perform Partridge Family music, but remains unwilling to get too close to the show that made him a star.
I think I love you.
I think he's reluctant to discuss the Partridge Family because he's spent all these years trying to shake it, you know, just trying to kind of get it out of his hair, you know, and become who he might have become sooner if he hadn't had to deal with all of that.
It changed the course of his career, it changed his whole life. So, you know, he had to remake himself after the show, though. I mean, it was not for the good as far as he was concerned. He had that moment in the sun, you know, made all that money, did all that, had all those accolades, and then he had to start all over again because his career was finished.
I think both of them are proud of the fact that they had that opportunity to do that series, but now that's not their life anymore, and they need to move on, and they don't want to be identified with that today.
In the 25 years since the show aired, there has never been a full cast reunion.
We know when we've been asked to do something and get together, we know Shirley or Susan won't be there. We know David probably won't be there. And if David's there, his time's very limited.
I know David is trying to do this musical career and pretend like the Partridge Family didn't exist, but I think if he were to just make a few people happy, then they might be more willing to listen to what else he wants to do, and then everybody wins.
Do you want to know what David Cassidy said when I asked him? Yeah, you told me. He said, I wouldn't come if I were on fire and you had water. God, I don't know, because that's the way he talks to me. Oh. It bugs me that certain members of the Partridge Family either aren't going to be on this show or are holding out. Now, if they're holding out for dough, I understand. I just happen to have dough this week, so you're covered. But, you know, if they don't want to be a part of the Partridge Family, I hate that. The Partridge Family was a great time and did wonderful things for all of us.
In 1994, David Cassidy wrote a tell-all book that revealed how much the Partridge Family affected him.
The reason I wrote this book is really and truly, finally, to say, listen, I loved it, it was great, it had everything that anyone could want. The pain, the agony, the joy, the bliss. But you know what? It's taken me 15 years to get over it, to get over the hump, and to have people really see me as this guy, to be successful again, to have the kind of career that I want, and I really don't want to talk about it anymore.
I think he went through a real growing up process and realizing what he'd been through, and then he had to decide what did he want to do.
As a result of hitting rock bottom, that I think that I was able to find an inner strength and a sense of purpose again, to rebuilding my life and to find a sense of joy and happiness and a reason to get up in the morning.
When we return, a Partridge Family revival.
I don't look at the Partridge Family and find any real social relevance. I just see a bunch of kids in velvet.
1970 to 1974. 96 episodes. Decades of syndicated reruns later, the effect of the series on the lives of the cast, the lives of the fans, and on American pop culture still persists. For a long time, the music, the clothes, and the values of the Partridge Family were considered pure, silly 70s. But more recently, the show has found a resurgence.
I just remember all of a sudden people saying, what a great show. And I would look at them and they say, we grew up with your show, you know, we grew up with you.
It's funny how it keeps going through the generations, because now I'm meeting the kids of the people my age that are now getting into it. It's like a whole new generation is starting, and it's not like they don't know what the Partridge Family is. They seem to be just as big the fans as the generation ahead of them.
I think 1989 I started really, the world suddenly, I woke up and I walked down the street and everybody went, instead of, you know, oh yeah, you, they went, wow, it's you.
In 1993, David headlined with his brother Sean on Broadway. And in 1995, David took Las Vegas by storm in the hit stage production FX.
It's just been a great decade for me. The 90s have been the best decade for me, by far. As an actor, as a writer, as a singer, I got an awful lot that I never had in the 70s, and people started recognizing me as opposed to this phenomena as a talent.
He loves acting. You know, he loves singing. I'm sure he loves doing what he's doing now. You know, and it's what he wants to do. He's finally realizing that he really is a talented guy, you know. He really does sing and act very well, and he's got all that energy. I think maybe he's finally discovered his role, you know, in showbiz.
Here I'm in Vegas. I'm starting to feel real good, you know.
It has always been difficult for people to explain the popularity of the series. First, there was the overwhelming success of the music, which everyone thought was dated at the time. But it turns out people still love those songs. But beyond the music, there is something about the show that continues to captivate old fans and create new ones.
The show ended in '75, and it seemed to me television just took a slide. I mean, there were no more sitcoms. You know, there were no more variety shows. It was all the shoot-em-ups, this and that and the other thing. And finally, people said, wait a second, you know, what happened to the good old days?
I think it's nostalgia. I think that everyone looks back on a time when they were happy, and it probably is to do with the age they were. And so those people have all grown up and still have a nostalgia for their youth.
I threw out the LPs, I threw out the magazines, I threw out, it just, you know, it's the show's over, it's gonna go away. What a fool I was.
This was a little entertainment piece. It was a 25 or 23-minute thing that we entertained a family with in its time period. I don't know what it's left. Maybe families loving each other is nice, but I don't think that that's anything unique. I mean, you probably learn that in your real life.
It was a lot of fun. The music was a lot of fun. A good sense of humor. We didn't approach the show like, oh, this is very serious. But in thinking back, I think that those values were there.
I don't look at the Partridge Family and find any real social relevance. I just see a bunch of kids in velvet. But, you know, it was fun, it was good. I mean, I don't think we did any harm. And that's pretty good. That's not a bad thing to say. Nobody got hurt by the Partridge Family.
Where is that kind of television today? Where is a family show that everybody can sit down and look at and watch and say, hey, isn't this fun? Where is a show that takes them into another time and into a nostalgic moment, into some fantasy, everything is so realistic today, you know, and I think we need something to take us out of what's happening in our daily lives. And that's what shows like The Partridge Family did.
Watching some of that old magic, a question springs to mind. Why haven't they made The Partridge Family the movie? Well, don't panic, fans of the groove. The box office takings of the Brady Bunch movies have not gone unnoticed in Hollywood, and plans are afoot to take the Partridge Family and their bus down that same road. And the director for such an extravaganza? A man named Brady, believe it or not. Jordan Brady, to be exact. So have your money ready. I'm Angela Bishop. See you next time.
Keep moving on. I'm right in the middle of a good dream. Okay, so it up. I'm sleeping and right in the middle of a good dream. Like all at once I wake up from something that keeps knocking at my brain.
If one more person comes up to me and starts singing the theme song of the Brady Bunch, I'm gonna go insane.
And spring up in my bed, screaming out the words I dread. I think I love you. Just like we did before.
The transvestite hooker thing I might not do again. But aside from that, I have no regrets.
I think I love you. I think I love you. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Good night.